Many of you know about Heroes of Bronze, which originally was a short film released a couple of years ago, made by my friend Martin Klekner. However, he has now taken this even further, which is something that I am incredibly excited for, in hopes of pitching this as a TV show. He released a proof of concept trailer. I recently reacted to it on the channel, and so far the reception has been absolutely phenomenal. It is an animated historical series set in the times of the Greco-Persian Wars, and it is a show that us as history lovers have wanted for so long. And today we're going to be talking to Martin about this. So Martin, I guess we should start. What are the next stages for this? How are we going to go about trying to pitch this to a company, a producer? Where do we go from here? Perhaps we should just start with that.
Well, hello everybody, and hello Adam as well to you. Thank you for the awesome content that you do on YouTube. I watch it regularly, and it helped me in my video, in making my video as well. And yeah, there's going to be a long journey. Probably what I'm going to do now is basically prepare all the materials that one needs for pitching a show like this. So you need some sort of pitch, some presentation to the producers. You also need some sort of video, which is the teaser that you could see on YouTube. And also some sort of outline of the story that you want to create. In my case, I've had this like story outline or even like written story for a long time. Basically, when I was finishing the first short film, I've written you could say novel. It's shit, but I'm not a writer. But at least I outlined the story of the first, you could say, season for Heroes of Bronze. And that currently I transformed into a screenplay for a pilot. Again, I'm not really a writer, and English is definitely not my mother tongue. So I need to hire some screenwriter for that, somebody who knows what they're doing. But when I have all these three things together, I will start basically trying to pitch it to TVs probably. And I'll see what I can do with Netflix, HBO. I'm not sure if it's gonna be possible, or if it's not gonna be basically so difficult that in the end I'm gonna give up trying to pitch it to TVs and just make it myself. But yeah, all things are on the table, and I'll see where this takes me. But I mean, I always say that I will be working on this project anyway. So whether I can pitch it successfully or not, I will still be working on Heroes. So that's it. That's the path ahead of me, and the rest of this year and the next one's gonna be wild. Talking to a lot of people.
So you were talking about basically pitching it to different broadcasters. I don't really know how you describe that, like Netflix, HBO. Netflix especially has a bit of a tendency of butchering historical medias, especially in their visual presentations. So obviously, authenticity and sort of getting back to representing Greeks authentically is a massively important part for you on this Heroes of Bronze project. So how would you go about, you had some people basically saying that they're worried that if this gets taken up by a studio, that they'll basically strip it away from its core and want to, change it into something that is like dark and gloomy and Hollywoodified. So how do you think you'll go about that process if someone basically says, yeah, we'll take Heroes of Bronze, but we want to change it the direction it's going?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, of course, and the vision for this and how I want it to be basically as historically correct as possible. It's very important for me. Basically, the most important thing, because I grew up, or I've absolutely fallen in love with books like The Long War, or and others, and also lots of nonfiction books. And I currently know a lot about this area of history. So it would be kind of impossible for me to basically lower the threshold for this vision and basically go with something that somebody would force me to do. So that's even, to be honest, that's even the first feedback that I got for the screenplay that I kind of created, is that I should have more women in the main roles, but it just doesn't make sense in that period of history. It's like I will not put women in the phalanx. Unfortunately, I'm not condoning it. It's just the way it was, and I'm not going to change history because something is currently popular. And also, I think that things are changing a little bit. People seem to be hungry for something more historically truthful or faithful to what it probably was. It's not, it's just one example. The women are just one example, but I'm sure lots of stuff like this would probably be forced on the screenplay or on the story of heroes, and I'll have to really try to discern what I can go with and what I cannot.
Yeah, right. I
But
think
it's so important.
yeah, and I think that's the thing is we sort of need to separate the you're trying to recreate something that's historically correct. That's not necessarily a commentary on whether it's good or bad. It's just historically,
Exactly.
accurate. And I think, yeah, that's one thing is lots of modern medias have certain quotas that they have to cast, X amount of main characters as women or whatever. And I mean, unless there's a way in your first one, you sort of had, was it the boy's mother sort of was the voiceover, so you sort of managed to incorporate a female character into that. But if there are needs for a certain amount of characters being, say, female in a film or a TV show, there are other ways that you can implement them into the story that is just period authentic.
Definitely, yeah. Basically, the core of the story is three men. So that's probably what the person that was reviewing my screenplay was talking about. But that's the core of the story. That's there is Nikephoros from Athens at the one side of the sea. Then there's Philippos from Miletus in the center, and then there's a Persian named Arnam, and these three start as like really good friends because there's lots of backstory that I created for them, and at some point they got to know each other, even saved each other's lives, and really became great friends. And as the story progresses, as the war starts raging, they suddenly become more and more. They basically become enemies from some reason, various reasons that I don't want to spoiler here, but that's what the story is all about. And I really would love to tell this story of basically the relationship degrading over time, and then at the end, basically repairing itself after all of the events of the wars. So that's the arc of friendship of three men. And then there's various other characters, for example, Penelope, that you know from the first short film, if you've seen it. She is basically the narrator and wife to Nikephoros. And she is a very important part of the story as well, supporting Nikephoros and even having her own very important role after Nikephoros dies. That's no spoiler because that's what happens in the short film. It's on YouTube. So there are definitely women in my story, and it's just about how I can incorporate them in there to not be basically putting them in some role that they didn't have in ancient society.
Yeah, well, this is something I always feel like. I always think it's kind of insulting to historical women to say in order to have any importance, they have to fill a man's role. Like you can have
Yeah.
a perfectly important female character who just has that societal female role and still be really important. So we have, obviously, you have all these different stories, and it's hopefully it's going to be multiple seasons. There's been some questions like, what battles are you going to cover? Obviously, Marathon was a big part in the teaser, but are you going to see Thermopylae? Are you going to see Plataea? Are you going to see these other famous battles, or is it going to predominantly be centered around Marathon?
It's always funny, like talking about something that doesn't yet exist. It's just in my head, and I try to get it out there. But definitely, the plan is to show all of these battles. I mean, I mentioned that it starts with the Ionian Revolt, so I'd like to be showing everything from Siege of Naxos to Siege of Miletus and Fall of Miletus, Battle of Lade. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's one of those big naval battles before even Marathon happened. And then Marathon, Salamis, Artemisium, Plataea, and the story ends there.
Okay, awesome. Because I think this is something that just is why I was so excited for this film, or the series and the short film, was people, especially in our sort of realm of YouTube and people who watch, have just wanted something that is, a perfectly enjoyable story that is just historically authentic. And for some reason, Hollywood seems to think that historical accuracy doesn't equal entertainment, instead of realizing that history is some of the most fascinating stories that we actually have. And you've done prior work on the Kingdom Come Deliverance series as well. And that was a massively popular video game series that, at its core, was trying to be historically authentic to the medieval period, and it managed to still be a very entertaining series and still project a really important story and a very enjoyable story. And I think that that's just, we need more of this historical media that shows that you can still produce perfectly enjoyable historical media and be authentic to the histories, or take heavy inspiration in the histories. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I think that that's better than changing these random stories into this is our tale of Troy, but it doesn't really have anything to do with Troy except the names of the main characters. Well, then why just build the story on something that is authentic. So I think that's really awesome. And I think that's something that's great as well, to learn that there is a deeper internal story between this relationship with three people within that. Because I know some people had said, it looks awesome, but I'm just worried that the story will be a little bit bland or just be combat. But that seems like there's a lot of underlying stuff that you've been mentioning that are going under that as well.
It's funny that when you mentioned Kingdom Come, we actually had Daniel Vavra, the creative director behind the game. He had so many problems with producers and with people who basically didn't give him money just because they thought that the historical accuracy is not something that people want in gaming. So everybody said that it needs to have dragons and fantasy elements for it to be successful. And he proved them wrong. So I think there's this huge hunger for this sort of entertainment that is, on the more historically correct side. So that's what I'm trying to do as well. And I still think that trying to pitch this idea is gonna be pretty difficult, because even now I basically read some research about what's the current pitching trends, and from some reason. In Europe, at least, they're against historical shows, for example, because they cost a lot of money. It's a lot of problem to write something that audiences will like. At least that's what I heard from people who really understand this stuff. So I think I'm going to have a lot of difficulty trying to force this through. I'm thinking a lot about doing some sort of Kickstarter campaign. Lots of people told me that it's a lot of work and it's very difficult to make a successful one, but that's one possible way. And also, since I'm like making this show myself currently, I understand the technology a little bit, and I can see the huge improvements that are happening these days. And I'm not really talking about generative AI, because I hate that. It's disgraceful for artists to use generative AI. But there's lots of AI that actually helps to automate processes and technological stuff behind that can really help a single creator. For example, lots of animation can now be recorded from one video. You just record yourself moving around, and AI can get your data, your animation data, just from that video. It used to be that you had to hire this big studio where they would do motion capture for all of that. But nowadays, it's a matter of a few bucks that you pay to AI services, and they give you a nice animation from that. So I'm hopeful that in the future, it's going to be much easier for small creative teams to do shows like these. So maybe the traditional way of going to producers and pitching all this and being rejected and having your work stolen and stuff like that, it may not be the case in the near future. So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea, because I think there's lots of this idea that, of course, AI has its pros and cons. And for someone you're a one-man team for this, so to be able to allow certain elements that it's not like the art is being changed by AI. It's helping you get models and motion. I think that's definitely for like a one-man team. That's a very fair use, I think, of using
And
that tool.
I actually don't want to be a one-man team anymore. So I'm trying to like ask around, trying to build a small team of volunteers. So I already have a few people that after the release of the latest teaser, they offered their services. So that's my plan for the near future, building us like a small team. And I have lots of stuff to build. Several ancient cities and lots of new armor that I want to create, and yeah, so there's lots of work ahead. But hopefully, if it's not just me working on it, if it's more people now, it's going to be much faster.
So actually, that's a great topic. So you are recreating, armors and cities and landscapes that are overall pretty accurate. Like, especially, I love the way that you captured the geography of Marathon, for example. How do you go about recreating these landscapes in your works?
The cities are still a problem that I'm trying to solve because for Athens, I went to Athens actually, and I visited several museums there. So I got some books with layouts of the city at various stages. So that's fairly easy. But for places like Naxos or Miletus, that doesn't even exist in its ancient form, and then for Persian places, I'm not sure how to do that. So I got together with a few historians and some architects, and we will try to create a research that will allow me to basically recreate these cities. Some material even doesn't exist, so sometimes one has to go and think about, okay, this we don't have layouts for the city, but some it could have looked like this, for example, and try to be as faithful to history as you can. But there's lots of empty areas that one has to fill. When it comes to the environment, I tried to travel to lots of those places, but where I couldn't go, I used Google Maps. So lots of the Persian areas that I've never visited, Iran. So I use a lot of Google Maps there. And for example, the Pasargadae, the city, the original main city of the Persian Empire. I tried to recreate it for one of my short stories. I also have some short stories for Heroes of Bronze if you're interested. So there's currently 6 of them, and there's lots of illustrations there. And for one of them, I recreated this ancient city. So yeah, that's how I go about it. Marathon was lots of like little pieces that I put together in a 3D scene, and then I populated it with my characters. And then there's all the various gear that to be honest, I use a lot of photos from reenactment events. For example, I used yours. I used your gear and also the gear of the Leva. There's this Italian group, very famous one,
Oh yeah, I
and
forget the name, but Matthias. Yeah, he's the guy with the lion
Matthias,
shield.
of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah. So that's a huge source of inspiration for me. So I'm trying to go around and getting photos of people who seem to know what they're doing, and then I recreate it in 3D.
And honestly,
So
I think that is such a cool. Not obviously for me, I was pretty happy to see an animated version of me in the film, but I think that's also a really awesome way. Like, reenactors are pretty much the closest we can get to the, what they would have looked like in the period. Obviously there's going to be a few errors that are in panoplies and impressions, but I think that overall is a great way to take inspiration from existing, modern impressions. And that's what I sort of loved about looking at your stuff, is obviously there's certain shields I recognized from people. And not only I think that's awesome because it sort of gives back to that hoplite community in a way, it's awesome for people that are watching it and go like, oh my gosh, that's me in that's really cool. But also it's an awesome way to just, instead of having to piece together, or like Assassin's Creed Odyssey has this weird armor style where it's like almost accurate but feels off at the same time. Whereas yours definitely feels a lot more rooted with an artistic style, but still rooted and based on actual real armors. So, you previously worked on Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is an awesome, very, again, popular video game series. Is there any world in which we could see that same company making a Heroes of Bronze inspired video game? Is that something that we might be able to hope that might happen in the future?
Yeah, it's a funny story that at the beginning I was in Warhorse. I was supposed to be just the trailer guy. So I started learning their tools just to make trailers for the game. But at that point, after I learned those tools, I was the only one who knew how to use them in the company because they were so atrocious. Nobody else wanted to work with those tools. So yeah, I had a great job. I was happy that I was there. So I learned everything, and through various lots of stuff happened, and somehow I ended up. Basically, the creative director told me that I now have my own department, which is cinematic department. And there, I gathered all my friends from film school. So all of my friends that I basically always wanted to cooperate with on something, maybe on my projects as well, I dragged into Warhorse, and they stayed there. so those guys, some of them are still there, and it's a little bit pity because I don't think Warhorse will ever work on something like Heroes of Bronze because they have, of course, their own long-term plans now. I don't even know what they're working on right now, but I'm sure it's going to be great. But yeah, I talked a little bit with them, but I don't think there's a chance that they will in the near future help me with this project. So I gotta get funding myself. But lots of great artists in there. So if I had them at my disposal, that would be something.
Yeah, well, that's a real shame because I think that would have been awesome because they obviously are. Warhorse obviously has that desire for historical authenticity. So who knows? Maybe if Heroes of Bronze absolutely kicks off and becomes something, I think we should just start boycotting them actually. And I think that's great to hear as well. That even if it doesn't get picked up by a big, platform like Netflix, that you still are going to go ahead with this, then even if it's big or smaller, it's just independently done, we're still going to get this awesome product or production. And I think people would love to support that. I think this is something that people have wanted for years in the historical community, and you are basically that beacon of hope of like, oh my gosh, see, you can have an animated, historically accurate ancient Greek series, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, that would be awesome, and thank you very much for that. And it like seeing the reception of this video, even though it has like fewer views than the original short film, that the memory short film, it has fewer views, but it doesn't matter because the engagement is so much higher. And like there's so many comments who say that they would want to see a show like that, which really gives me great hope for it. There's also lots of controversy, I'd say, or something like not so positive. There are various comments like, the most common one is, why is it Heroes of Bronze? Because it's not set in Bronze Age. Heroes of Bronze is, the meaning of the title is heroes made of bronze. Basically, there's lots of mentions in ancient texts that those guys, when they put on their full panoply, they almost look like bronze statues.
Yeah, they were men of bronze, right? Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to capture. Man of Bronze was actually the first idea for a title, but somehow just when I said aloud Heroes of Bronze, it clicked for me. I know it brings a lot of confusion especially to people who don't know the period, so it might bring confusion and make them think that it's from Bronze Age. And then there's lots of comments from people who just want to show me that they know their stuff and that I don't know anything. So
yeah, you'll get a lot of those. I never realized how many people supposedly have PhD level education until you read a Reddit comment section. But no, just keep doing what you're doing. No, it's an awesome step in the right direction, and overall I think you've done that really, really well. And another thing that people have commented on is that it's in English. And of course, I can understand why some people might be a little bit upset by that. You're making an ancient Greek works and they're speaking English. Obviously, of course, if you want to get this picked up by a big corporation, just the way of the world, English is the language that is most accessible to people. But are there any other reasons why you decided to go with English as opposed to either just Greek voice actors speaking English or actually trying to do it in the original language?
Well, there are several. It's funny. It's again very similar to the story of Kingdom Come, because there we got lots of hate from Czech audience because the first version of the game didn't have Czech dubbing or Czech voiceovers. That's just because voiceover in a game costs so much money and takes such a long time that we simply, for that game, we had to go directly with English. For Heroes of Bronze, it's a little bit easier because it's not gonna have that like tons of text for all of the quests and side missions. It's gonna be just one script basically. So there, it's possible, but there are two reasons that why I don't want to do it, at least at first. And that's first off, just getting talented actors who could speak not only Greek or Persian or Iranian language, but like ancient variations of that. I would have to believe them that they're saying it right, and I would have no idea if they're acting correctly, if they're good actors, because the language barrier is so big. I know how to direct actors in English, but I wouldn't know how to direct actors in those languages. So I can definitely see it as an experiment that could come later after the product or after the show is finished. But creating it right off the bat in those ancient languages, that's not very realistic for me from a production side.
Yeah, well, I think it does, and especially, again, this is a project that you want to try and get out there. And it just is just the way that the world works now is most people's second language is English, right? So it means that if you produce something in English, then Germans can watch it, the Spanish can watch it, Mexicans can watch it, obviously native English speakers can watch it. It opens the door to so many more potential viewers who know English as a second language, as opposed to, and that's something as well, is even if you did it in modern Greek, that is different to ancient Greek, actually quite different in some cases. The way that you even just pronounce words and sounds is different. So Greek is a language that not many people speak in the grand scheme of things. So it makes sense if you're trying to get this show out there to a global audience that you would pick a language that the majority of people to some extent speak and understand.
Yeah, definitely. But don't take me wrong, it would be super cool to hear it. But yeah, it would be basically mission number 2. Mission number 1 is actually to make it.
Yeah, get the show out there first, and then we'll see. Because I know the TV show Barbarians had the Romans speaking actual Latin, which is cool. But yeah. Anyway, so I just know there was a couple people who were basically saying that, and I'm like, I can understand why, like, as a Greek, you'd like, I want my language represented, or at least my accents represented. But at the same time, you have to sort of look at it from your perspective that you have to ensure that they are, speaking in a way that you're happy with, and for a big media corporation to pick it up, it's going to basically have to be in English.
And then again, Latin is still taught at a lot of schools in Europe, but ancient Greek or Greek, it's different. It's not so widespread. So there's also difference there. But actually, the first season of Barbarians was very nice with that, and I really liked it. The second one, not so much. That was particularly the level of quality dropped a lot. We talked about those comments, and I wanted to finish up with that, with the third most common one, and that was that Persians wouldn't behave as they do in the teaser. and especially the one guy who comes out of the boat and spits on the ground. That may be, but it always sounds to me a little funny that you would basically pack all Persians, all everybody in that nation into one bag and say no one would behave like this, because this particular character, it's the brother to Erinem, one of the main heroes. This guy's name is Venom, and he basically has this deep-rooted hate for Greeks because he blames them for the death of his wife. So he has a reason to be immediately hating as he disembarks the boat. So everything there that you can see in the teaser has some sort of reason why it's there, and those characters are not just acting randomly.
Right,
So
yeah, I think that's something that makes sense as well. Is you have to remember that, like, that is a little trailer, and every single one of those people has a character. And yeah, I think sometimes people are a little bit quick to judge. I'm like, just let the story unfold a little bit. But yeah, okay, so I think I agree. Those were sort of the three main critiques out of the vast majority of comments were just overwhelmingly positive, which was awesome. Is there anything else that just you want to talk about this project, that you want people to know? Just anything that you want to say about Heroes of Bronze?
the most important mission that I currently have, and I seem to be more and more successful at it, is really bringing the attention to the story, because this project started. I'm using a software called Blender, as you can see, for all of my 3D scenes, and it's a really great tight community that allowed me to learn that software and basically be able to realize that vision of all of my short films. Everything I do is currently in that software. But getting from that world of, okay, I'm doing this as a technical demo, and getting into the storytelling world seems to be very difficult. And it's slowly shifting now. It seems like most of the comments now are reacting to the story rather than to the fact that I created it in any sort of software. So that's great, and I'm looking forward to a moment where people start asking about the characters and why they're there and what they're doing, the reasoning behind all of that. And yeah, so that's why I wanted to also like explain that the characters in the teaser are not just random cool guys.
And I think that's something as well, is this sort of lots of people watch the memory short film, but otherwise this is also a little bit of that was a couple of years ago now that you released that, wasn't it? 1 or 2 years ago. And I think that this sort of resurgence trailer is what's made a lot of people remember and notice this project for the first time. And you've done also a lot more work on this project behind the scenes. You've done short stories on it. You have a whole website that I'll link all of it down below, that I'd encourage people to check out. And again, if people want to support this project in any way, you have a Patreon for Heroes of Bronze, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
I think trying to get a Kickstarter going, I genuinely think that with the current sort of hype that is being built around this, I think it could really, really go somewhere.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm starting to feel like it as well, because getting the feedback on what the project currently is, I definitely will take from the feedback all the actionable stuff. So I will try to hire a screenwriter as soon as possible. Of course, that requires money. So I will need to figure out when to do a Kickstarter campaign, but I'm starting to think about it more and more.
Awesome. Well, Martin, thanks so much for your time here, and just thanks for actually making this project. You know, like it is something that generally I have wanted for such a long time, and it happens to be an era that is my main sort of focus. And so far, it is looking absolutely magnificent. So, thanks so much, and I'll try and do my part to keep sharing around the news and updates and all of that on this project. And yeah, I really best of luck, and I really hope that this goes as much as we want it to. I really hope that it goes that well.